Back again on Speed Street. Speed Street presented by Dirty Mo Media. Joey Mulinaro, Ben Walton, Connor Daly, and I know Connor and myself are at least happy coming into this recording coming on Tuesday evening because both of our football teams were victorious over the weekend. The Indianapolis Colts getting their first win in Houston, and the Pittsburgh Steelers somehow, despite me wanting to gouge my eyeballs out while watching it, were able to get to 1-1 on the season. So all good things there on the football front, but unfortunately, the IndyCar season has come to a close. First weekend of the offseason this past weekend, and this is our season review show. So we're going to take a look back at the predictions we made before the 2023 season. Ben has those. He's getting ready to fire to us. Connor he was on the clock all day putting together an entire stat sheet of the 2023 season. We're going to go with team by team stats, fun facts, a whole look back at the entire thing. And then we're going to end with your questions, audience questions, fan questions. We haven't done that in a while because we are in the thick of the season. And, we love to interact with you guys and to make you part of the show as much as we can. So, full show today, fun show today for sure. Connor, with that being said, have you recovered from putting the sheet together? Did you have a good weekend of watching football? What's going on in your world?
Oh, it felt good. It felt good to be that was my first weekend at home, I think, in a very long time. I got to go out to the IMSA race weekend. Obviously, there was a lot of great racing happening. At the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I spotted for the 4-hour race, the Michelin Pilot Challenge race, which our team started 22nd, finished third on the podium, the GS class podium. So that was really cool. Got to help long-time friends of mine up on the podium, Paul Sparta and Kenton Koch, or Kenton Cook, however you say his last name, I don't know. But great drivers, great fun. Learned really what it was like to be a spotter for a very long time. And a lot of the IndyCar spotters were up there too with me. So that was a good time. Interacted with a lot of great Speed Street listeners as well at the track. It's kind of a funny thing when we're just walking by and people just shout Speed Street as if it's like some call out. And but that's become our thing. Like it's not like a, hey, it's like Speed Street. And you're just like, all right. Like, thank you.
It always goes like this. This is the cadence. It goes, Speed Street.
Yeah, it's very much like that. Like that was what was happening. So it was really cool. And I guess it's not like we see how many people listen or watch or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But you don't know where those folks come from, right? Like, I don't know who is doing what. Like, I just hope people listen, right? I think it's fun to talk about motorsports. So it's cool to see that folks listen and enjoy it. So we appreciate that. But yeah, great weekend of sports. Some great football games, some football games that I incorrectly bet on as well. But it was good to see Why am I spacing on our Colts backup quarterback's name right
Gardner
now?
Minshew.
Gardner Minshew, yeah, one of the greatest personalities in all of sports, apparently. But he did great. Sad to see Anthony Richardson go out, but good to see Colts get a win. Your Steelers, I don't know what was going on there. That was a very wild game. But yeah, man, lots to get into this week. We want to do a full season review. Just a very analytical and opinionated look at like, hey, these are the raw, real results. Like I try to do this myself, and I'm sure there's an easier way to do this, but basically how it's going to work is we made some predictions at the beginning of the season. Ben's going to find those for us, which is actually really cool because I don't remember at all what I said.
Ben tell you one of them.
And I don't think Joey does either. But I basically went through and went team by team. Every driver's best finish, and if they won, how many wins did they get? What was their best qualifying result, or how many poles they got? And there was actually some really interesting things that, because again, we talk a lot about how you can't just look at results because that is honestly stupid. And everyone, when they choose to look at me, only look at results. But if you look at all these other people too, you're like, oh, man, like maybe there was some interesting things that you didn't expect. So it's cool to look at. And I went by, every driver that was in every car. So let's say, Ryan Hunter-Reay's best finish in the 20 car, my best finish in the 20 car. We had Jack Harvey's best finish in the 30 car, Linus Lundqvist in the 60 car, every driver in every car, all the way through to Able Motorsports, from the Indy 500 and the Indy 500 single entries. So I'll go through some. Joey can read some of what I got, and we'll just kind of bounce back on some of our opinions, because as I read through all these results too, you actually see how many people, either had good first half of the seasons, or like all of a sudden in the middle, they disappear from the results sheet. And you're like, what happened? And it's fascinating. So we'll dive deep into that. But yeah, a lot of great questions as well. Because there's a lot of news that's been happening too lately.
Yeah. Well, first, before we get into our predictions, let's hop on that, because I know we got a lot of questions about it, and I had people blowing me up about it yesterday when it happened. The news breaking that Chip Ganassi Racing officially going to 5 full-time rides in 2024 with the signing of their development driver up into the IndyCar series, Kyffin Simpson, 18-year-old Kyffin Simpson. A pretty wild move. I mean, Connor, what was your initial thoughts when you saw that news come through?
Well, I think this is something that we got a lot of questions about, and I want to make sure we respect those folks who ask the questions. So we'll get into it a little bit later, but it's to give people, and I read the comments on this post a lot, because I find it interesting that there are still a lot of people that don't necessarily understand how this sport really works at times. Because Kyffin Simpson obviously already signed with the best team in all of IndyCar racing right now. And the man has finished 10th in the Indy Lights Championship, or Indy Next Championship. And I mean, there is no history of winning, or, very, very similar to, a Devlin DeFrancesco, showing up to the IndyCar series. Stingray Robb even did better, I believe, in the Indy NXT Championship than Kyffin Simpson. Now, Kyffin Simpson, I think, had to miss a race or two because he was racing overseas or something like that. But no real glimmers of if you're to judge, right? Like we had Linus Lundqvist, who won the Indy Lights Championship last year, could not get a ride. Now he's with Ganassi, right? But he needed that one chance to get in. But that one chance either comes if someone gets injured or if you have funding behind you, and Linus did not have that. So, this business, if you have enough money, you can do whatever you want. It's like when Max Chilton came to drive for Ganassi, right? Like Max Chilton had been in Formula One, but everyone kind of knew, and he had actually, he had more success, I would say, than Kyffin has had. No offense to Kyffin. I don't know him at all, and I respect how this world works because I'm very familiar with it now. But this is just the reality of it, right? Like if you're going to try to base things purely on results, which people get, people try to throw that at me all the time. I'm going to tell you, these are the results. And if the Indy Lights champion, Indian NXT champion has not signed yet, but Kyffin Simpson has, that is just one of the unfair sides of this sport. It's just what happens, right?
Connor, have you ever seen the movie All the President's Men?
No, I'm not familiar with that film.
Are you familiar with the whole Woodward and Bernstein, being the ones who reported on Watergate back in the Nixon days?
Not really.
Yeah. Well, the whole point of this being is that there's a real famous line from that movie and that whole scenario during Watergate. So the character named Deep Throat says, "Follow the money." Follow the money. Okay. Yeah. That is what you do in this sport, in this series. Whenever you have something that raises eyebrows, you follow the money, and that will give you the answer.
Yeah. And look, that is all it comes down to, right? So again, it's not bad. Like, I am someone who literally got my ride because I had a sponsor, right? We worked with BitNile and Todd Alt to get the ECR ride. I worked with the Air Force to go to ECR. Like, it's not like they chose me to come and drive for them. Like, this is a business deal, right? But when this type of deal happens and you're trying to fight for young drivers, hey, that's tough. But that has always been going on. That has been going on since the beginning of time. It's just more nowadays when you have the internet and you can kind of do research. Kyffin Simpson has definitely some strong backing behind him. And you know what? If you got it, use it, right? And Devlin, he did the same thing. I think he's probably enjoyed himself at the Andretti Autosport team, a great team, top-level team. Now he's gone. I don't know what he's going to do in IndyCar next year. I'm sure he'll show up, maybe on a lower-tier team. But you just kind of see how that works. And that's I'm not going to – I don't know how it's going to go for Kyffin Simpson. I don't know. I wish him all the best. As an 18-year-old, I would not have any idea what to have done in the IndyCar series. That is a young buckaroo. So I respect that. Got to get after it. But for those who don't actually know how this game works, if you show up to the table, any team's table, really except for Penske, with enough budget, you can do whatever you want. That's just how it works.
Yep. I mean, hey, like you said, I mean, it is what it is, and I'm sure if we were all in that position and we had those, we would do
the same thing. I mean, I respect, like, all of us, any of us, we're just jealous. Like, that's all we speak from. That's the real thing. Like, shoot, that sounds awesome.
Hey, if I had that money for my son when he's 17 years from now, and I wanted to go to Chip Ganassi and say, hey, he's going to be racing in the Indy 500, Chip, I would absolutely do it. I hope
you would have some sort of negotiation, yeah.
Right.
But that also, I will. There's more to that, and we'll get to it when the questions come up, because I think there's another element to that makes it quite interesting. So we'll get to that a bit later.
That's good. Just want to touch on it off the top, since it's one of the newer IndyCar stories as we start recording here tonight. But let's get into the review from our predictions that we made before the season started. This is probably the week before the St. Pete race, so maybe the last week of February or so, around there. Whole clean slate going into it. Connor, Ben, myself walked into this and decided to make ourselves probably on freezing cold takes of IndyCar. IndyCar memes get our ass. So Ben, go ahead and break it down for us of what we had going into this year.
Yeah, so I went all the way back to the Jimmy Johnson interview episode.
Nice. Jimmy Johnson, live phone call. Live phone
call. Great guy. Heading back from the shop, so we appreciate his efforts there. We gave predictions for our top three in the championship, not necessarily in any order, but you guys, I think actually all three of us did give one person that we were going to more likely crown the championship, the champion. Yeah. So, Connor, I'll start with you. You had Scott McLaughlin. That was your first one. It. And you had him to win. You did have Alex Palou in there, so you get some bonus points for that. And you had a couple other takes. So you had Rossi for number 3.
So did I pick a top 3 in the championship? Is that what I did or no?
Yeah, so top 3, not in any particular order, but then after you said, I think Scott McLaughlin will he'll win the championship.
So who were my 3? It was Alex Palou, Scott McLaughlin, and
Rossi.
Oh, so I was way off on Rossi, but I did nail 2 out of the 3.
You did, and you said he was going to be the best McLaren.
Oh, that was not a good call on my part.
Another freezing cold take is you said Dixon is not going to because he has this new engineer.
Dixon's not going to win the championship?
He said he wasn't going to be in your top 3. That's why you didn't put him in there, because he had a new engineer. So cold.
That's tough. Dixon does end up finishing second in the championship. Yes. That's all right. I still got 2 out of the 3. I'll take that in the lead.
That's pretty solid. I'm kind of scared.
So, Joey, you had 2 of the same ones. You had Palou. That was your first guy you picked. McLaughlin also said that was going to be your championship pick. And then you were on kind of the Colton Herta bandwagon this year. You had him at number 3, and that didn't serve you too well. So
that is tough.
You know what? No, I go back to when I made that prediction, and I still stand by all the reasons why I made that prediction.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I love Colton, but I mean, come on, man, help me out, dude.
Yeah, the expectations should be there. So, and then lastly, I wanted to change things up, and I said Newgarden, Scotty Mack also to win, and then Ericsson because I wanted to be different. So and they all finished well. So
yeah.
but
Yep, I mean,
not top 3 worthy.
you
So
got everybody in the top 6 there, Ben, and
yeah. So I'll take that.
Yeah. That's not bad. Did we have Indy 500 predictions as well?
We
did. You
did.
say you looked at those? Let's list those out too, because now
So
we can get a
also
good idea.
gave Indy 500 predictions.
Hold on, I didn't realize. I'm going through here now. I didn't realize like still. I mean, it's not great, but he still finished 10th in the standings. Like I mean, I picked him up there in the top 3. I know, but like I didn't even expect that because.
Well, in the document, you'll see
one podium this year.
Yeah, you'll see. We'll get into it in the document, but you're like, man, Colton Hurd only had 1 podium.
Yeah, crazy.
It's crazy.
I didn't look back at our Indy 500 preview show if the predictions changed, but this was just early prediction. Connor, you had yourself or Dixon/Pillow. So
I was wrong. Very wrong.
on the Joey, you also had Connor and Pato.
All right,
so
also
close.
wrong.
And then I had Pillow.
Pato in the wall.
Freaking he had it. He screwed me.
Oh, yeah.
So some cold takes in general. I think our extreme ones were pretty cold on all 3 of us, but I think in general we're in the right direction. So
yeah. I mean, that's not far off. 2 out of 3 is not bad.
Yeah.
It's like we were all kind of like, when you're golfing and like you're on the green, but you're like a foot away from the thicker part, like you're really about 17 feet from the hole, but you're on the green.
The fringe or whatever. What's
fringe? The fringe.
Yeah,
the fringe. Yeah.
Fringe guy.
That's kind of us.
Yeah.
But I mean, kind of nailed the 2 out of 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, Pillow, just what a gimme. Jeez. For
yeah.
everybody.
Experience the thrill of the racetrack like you're in the driver's seat with DraftKings Sportsbook. Bet on your favorite racers and feel the rush of every overtake, pit stop, and victory like never before. Right now, new customers can turn $5 into $200 instantly in bonus bets. Bet 5 on anything to score big, no matter what goes down on the track. Make sure to stay tuned into Dirty Mo Dough to keep up with all the NASCAR Cup Series playoff matchups. The racing action doesn't stop till the checkered flag drops. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and join with code SpeedStreet. New customers can bet $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. That's code SpeedStreet, only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. But there's a lot of interesting stuff in this season review as we get into it. You wanna jump in, Joey? Should we get?
Why don't we
this?
just alternate, man? Why don't you give the one down here from Ganassi, and then we'll alternate.
Yep. Yeah. We're gonna go. This is the order. We're gonna go Ganassi, Penske, Andretti Autosport, McLaren, RLL, MSR, Juncos Racing, ECR, Coin, Foyt, and then the Indy 500 teams as well. So we don't have to, Joey. You don't have to read the fun facts, but those are just things that you might want to touch on. Maybe some small things.
Yep, gotcha.
All right, so I will start off by getting into Ganassi. Obviously, very, very, very strong, very, very strong season. Obviously the 10 car, the champion. Alex Palou had 5 wins, but only 2 poles. Pretty self-explanatory. Having 5 wins is pretty solid. But also very, very consistent. Like Alex Palou, consistency was complete dominant. I mean, the guy almost won the championship with 3 races to go. The 9 car, Scott Dixon, 3 wins, no poles, which again, very interesting that Scott Dixon, not really the strongest qualifier. Also Marcus Ericsson with 1 win. So that is 9 wins for the Ganassi team in a season. I mean, that is if that literally destroys any other team. Like that is astounding. So complete dominance. That's why they're first. The 8 car, I would say Ericsson, like winning right out the gate was very strong, but never really got back to that type of pace. And then we get to the 11 car, which was obviously split between Marcus Armstrong and Takuma Sato. Oddly enough, I did not know this, but both Marcus Armstrong and Takuma Sato's best finishes of the season were both 7th. So Marcus Armstrong's best finish was 7th, and Sato best finish was 7th. And sadly, Sato finished 7th right in front of me at the Indy 500. So I saw that happen. But Sato was very hit or miss. He was either, boom, top 10 at the Indy 500 or completely, dead last at Texas, hit the wall at Gateway. Very, very hit or miss, literally. And then Marcus Armstrong, I would say he got several results taken away from him. Portland, for example, had a wheel come off in the pits or some sort of pit issue. But when you look at the results, you're like, Marcus is finishing 7th to 11th, almost like every race that he did. So pretty strong, consistent run and a couple decent shots at a podium, taken away from him. So very, very deserving of that seat. I actually got to spend a couple hours with Marcus Armstrong just over the weekend. Got to chat with him a lot more. Great guy. Maybe we'll have him on the show sometime. So that is the Ganassi review there. And Joey, you can take Penske here next.
Yeah, man, you go from Ganassi powerhouse to the Penske powerhouse right there. Only 3-car squad, as we know. A dominant year for Joseph Newgarden, obviously. He gets over the hump of the Indy 500. Starts 17th there, comes all the way up. Picture-perfect race for him. Wins it. We know that. Dominant on the ovals. 4 wins there. Scott, interesting here with Will Power. All the talk about Scott Dixon for the first half of the season, first 3/4 of the season, really, with the 9-car, and about, oh man, hasn't had a win yet, and then he does what he does. And then you look back and Will Power, he finishes twice, or he finishes second twice. He's on the pole once. Obviously, we know he's the official best qualifier in IndyCar history.
Yeah,
but not a win for the 12th.
Fascinating. I actually did not know that. When I was looking through, I was like, Will Power didn't win a race? Like, that's wild. Crazy. I just did. I again, as someone who follows it, you just assume Will Power is winning something.
Exactly. And, he's the 2022 champion, even though I think he only had 1 win in 2022, and then the rest were just like top 5, top 3 finishes, right? If I'm remembering correctly.
I'm not sure. I don't even remember.
I'm pretty sure he won Detroit in 2022, and Rossi almost caught him. But I'm pretty sure that was his only win, and then everything else he was just like not throwing into the wall.
Ben researched that for us.
But yeah, no win, and like I said, like it was kind of like all the talk was about Scott Dixon, about like, oh, he's won every year. Is this going to be the year he does it? And then meanwhile, underneath that, people weren't even thinking about Power, and he ends up not winning a race, but still solid year for him. Finishes second twice on the podium, 1 pole, like we said. Scotty Mack, we see him get another win, laid it on the pole twice, of course. And then Newgarden, yeah. Interesting little dynamic with Joseph, as obviously just cleaning up at Iowa, Texas, Indy on the ovals. But some stuff left to be desired, and especially in the second half of the season, once you got just more towards the street and the road courses there to finish things off. So I don't know, all the talk going in, and I remember when we had him on at the beginning of the season on this show, all the talk, and it had been about like, okay, what does Penske have to do to be better at Indy on the 500, the big one?
Oh yeah,
but all their effort.
They nailed it.
And I even asked him, I said, what are you going to do? What is it? What's going on here? And he's like, he kind of shook his shoulders in his head and smiled. Was like, I wish I knew. I wish I had the answer. Obviously, they figured it out, put it together this year, but then it was a kind of hey, because of that, then it was sacrificing on the back end. It was just bad luck, unfortunate timing. With it could have been a multitude of things. But in 2024, now moving forward, are you going to see a little bit more of that balance out there for the 2-car? That's something that I think I'll be watching.
Yeah, and to add on to that as well, Scott McLaughlin, only 1 win compared to Joseph's 4 wins, but Scott McLaughlin 3rd in the championship. Like Scott McLaughlin was always very, very consistent, always in the fight. Very, very few mistakes. Like that was, I think, one thing big from Scott. And that's what you have to have in IndyCar when you're competing at the front like that. So very interesting. The one thing I'm a little sad to see, Joseph, it looked like he was so upset and everything was like crumbling around him after he didn't have a chance at really winning the championship. But I was like, dude, you won the Indy 500. Like,
yeah, who
like
gives
let's maybe, like, you've already won 2 championships. Like, I don't know. Like, he's such a competitor that, of course, he's going to be angry, and anyone's going to be like. We don't do this to lose. Like, we don't do this to, to show up and not have a chance to win. But like, the Indy 500 is so special, and I'm sure as he goes into this offseason, because any Indy 500 winner throughout the offseason, I mean, you're celebrated all throughout this whole next 6 months until the Indy 500. So, or however many months it is now. But yeah. Interesting stuff from Penske. And again, totaling the wins, they had 5 wins as a team. Compare that to 9 for Ganassi. 9 wins and only 4 poles. 4 poles, 5 wins for the Penske team. So really interesting. All right, that leads me to Andretti Autosport. Very large team. This is the first 4-car team. 5-car at Indy that we'll check out. So we'll start with the 26 car, obviously, which is Colton Herta. Colton Herta, his best finish of the year was 3rd once, which is, I mean, I was like, I didn't realize that. 2 poles, which again, Colton Herta can throw down some incredible qualifying laps. But one thing I also noticed is that like he qualified inside the top 3 at least 5 times. As I was going through there, he definitely had a pretty solid qualifying performance compared to how many podiums he ended up on. So very interesting to see how that is is related. But we move on to the 27 car. Obviously, Kyle Kirkwood. 2 wins. Like, I mean, street course king, they were calling him. He started out a little rough at St. Pete. I felt it. But also 1 pole. But again, a lot of other things that were affecting him during the year, so he wasn't in the championship fight. But when anytime you have a multi-win year in IndyCar, I think that's wildly impressive. So Kyle's only going to continue to grow and get better. 28 car, Roman Grosjean. Obviously, boy, that car got into the thick of things towards the end of the year. And that was interesting. But he started the year really strong. Had 2 second place finishes, 2 poles, but almost hard to remember those. Like very difficult, as we go, and a lot of people have very, very short memories in racing. But Grosjean towards the beginning of the year was really strong. Obviously, was fighting for a win there in St. Pete too. So another good finish there was a potential win. Was gone there pretty quickly with him and Scott McLaughlin getting together, but very interesting stuff. And what I found strong about Andretti, and this is one interesting fact, they had 5 poles as a team. So 5 poles as a team. Compare that to anyone else. They had more poles than both Penske and Ganassi. So again, I just think when you look at that, it's like, wow, interesting that this team has great single lap pace, but maybe not able to follow through in the race. So to have more poles than both of those top 2 power teams that we just listed is really interesting. 29 car. Well, Devlin's car, there was a lot going on with that car. But if you look at the highlights, his best finish of the season was 12th. The next worst finish, obviously, in the team, or the next, like, comparing that to, the best finish of the other cars, being 3rd and wins and seconds with the other 3 cars, that's obviously a little bit different. Best qualifying was P5. Obviously, we saw that, I believe at the Indianapolis GP there at the end of the year, and 22nd in the championship. So not. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it's a car that sadly lost the leader circle. Even though he's 22nd in the championship, the 30 car actually ended up in the 22nd place in the car points. Some are saying that's because of what I did in St. Louis. No big deal. But Devlin just, not at the same level as that team. Just not at the same level. And that's, I mean, I think everyone knows that. He gave it a good shot, did not throw the thing in the wall a bunch. And so I'm sure he'll get another chance, if he's got the funding for next year. But we also had Marco Andretti, of course, at Indy 500, who finished 17th, qualified 24th. Marco obviously wants to look for more than that, but not too much to look into there. The team in general, I kind of wrote down some fun facts. Team was kind of all over the map. Great pace, lots of poles, lot of controversy with how Devlin was held in the pit lane and not able to cross the finish line on the last race in Laguna Seca, which that means they lost the leader circle by 1 point. I talked to Michael Andretti a little bit about that last week, and I was surprised about that too. And then I was at the Rahal shop today, and I heard their side of it too, because obviously they got in. So very interesting. I would say that is the Andretti review. When they clean it up, when they're able to match the race pace with the qualifying pace, I mean, they're in a really strong position.
Yeah, a lot left to be desired there. You had very up and down for the Autosport there. How many more of those do you think that old MA is going to give a go at?
I mean, Marco's in great shape, and he's still got the desire to do it. So I could see him doing the Indy 500 for another 5-10 years. I don't know.
So he wins
into
one
his 40s.
What happens? Yeah.
Why not, right? If you got the chance to do it.
Yeah. 19-year-old to maybe he'll be, I don't know, freaking 49-year-old.
45. I bet he's doing it till he's 45, 48, maybe 50.
Yeah, some story that would be.
Get after it. Yeah. I mean, the funny thing is, Marco's on the pole for the 500 only 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, 2020. Yeah. Like, it's wild.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I hope he does. It's great for the spectacle, and it's great for the series.
Absolutely.
All right, Arrow McLaren going with the full-time 3 rides. Obviously, Pato, Felix, and Alex Rossi coming in. Alexander Rossi, the newcomer, and then you had Tony Kanaan giving his final go. The last chapter, the final ride at the Indy 500 in 2023, and the 66 ride. Weird year for McLaren too. A lot of expectations going into 2023. There's been expectations, for a little bit now with this team and the drivers they got there, especially with Alexander Rossi getting a fresh start, coming over from Andretti after all those years, new colors. But no wins. No wins for Arrow McLaren in IndyCar in 2023.
I mean, how crazy is that? Like, I just look at this stat sheet and you look at it and you're like, they did everything but win. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
crazy.
Literally. I mean, Pato, second, 4 times.
Yeah.
Didn't ever get a pole, which is also kind of interesting. Qualified second twice.
Yeah.
But then Felix was the pole king there.
Exactly.
For McLaren in the 6th ride. But his best finish was second. He did that once. He had 2 poles. I mean, he had both the 5 and 6. Really, 5, 6, and 7 were both up towards the front. We're in it. We're battling the Indy 500 as well. We saw what happened with Pato. How many laps was that? Like 20, 18 or something like that left?
No, there was a few to go. Yeah, I mean, he was definitely going for it at the end. I think it was a very silly move still. But you got to go for it when you get a chance. But still, when there's, if it was 1 lap to go, I get it. But 20 to go, maybe just save that, but put the old gun back in the holster for, maybe a couple more laps.
Put it all nice there, shooter.
Yeah.
But maybe a little bit of 2022 linger in and the young fella mind and why he made it like that. But yeah, you had Felix qualify in the front row for the Indy 500. Like I said, 2 poles. His best finish was second, and then Rossi. I'd say in my mind a more competitive year for him than his last couple at Andretti. I know he got the win at the Indy GP in August with Andretti in his final year there. But I always felt, at least me personally, I felt like he was more of a threat each and every weekend in the 7 ride with McLaren than the last couple of years than we saw with Andretti Autosport. His best finish was P3 once. He was up on the podium. Best qualifying was P3 twice. And yeah, I mean, you have it in the notes here. He was always kind of around the top 5, especially the first half of the year. But not able to, just like the rest of his teammates, come away with a checkered flag in 2023.
Yeah, very interesting. Like, it's like Rossi, like when you look through all the results sheets, you're like, well, he's there. He's just like, 4th, 5th, like say 7th, like just kind of hanging around. Obviously had that pit incident at one of the oval races, I believe, with Kyle Kirkwood. So a couple things there, but like Alex, very consistent, but I think he wants to find that next little bit. But again, I would say the most consistent team at being right there. You know what I mean? Like the most consistent in the hunt team. And, they had all 4 cars in the Fast 12 shootout or whatever at the Indy 500 too.
Yep.
So like, Kyle Larson's going to be pumped about that because even, we had Tony Kanaan on there too. He qualified qualified 9th, finished 16th in the Indy 500. So, there's a lot that McLaren, I'm sure, as they've got a ton of people and a very, very aggressive, environment on like, hey, we got to win. But they got a lot of trophies. So still got to be proud of that.
Yep, no doubt. All right, RLL, a team that you hopped in and ride for a little bit. Tell us about it.
Yes, yeah. So the Ray Hall Letterman Landing and Race team, very interesting to see their year as you kind of go through the the results pages. Let's start with Graham. Obviously, Graham, the 15 car, his best finish of the year was P2, but got 2 poles. So I think Graham definitely feels like he missed out on a win and definitely a second podium there at the Indy GP later in the season. But if you would have asked me, early on in the year, like Graham finished in the top 10, I think at St. Pete or one of the races in the first 3 races. But like in general, like after May, you'd be like, man, these guys are struggling.
This could be a tough go. Yeah.
And then to have 2 poles, a second place finish on the year. I would say if you're a Graham Rahal fan, like that's got to be something that you're quite happy about. And it's got to be super satisfying for Graham too. I know what that type of kind of like revitalization feels like. Not like I was qualifying on a pole, but just feeling that speed again and that ability to do it is really cool. So good to see that for Graham. And that team definitely, I think, will have, and there's a couple questions about this later, but I think they're probably going to set very high standards for themselves next year, as they should. So to move on to the 45 car, Christian Lundgaard, 1 win, 2 poles. So, great to see his debut win or his first win of his IndyCar career. I would say, having 2 poles as well is very strong. And, when you look at it again, that team, 4 poles for that team, which is very close to Andretti, but not quite the Andretti number. But again, solid to think of, that's more poles than McLaren as well. You know what I mean? So you kind of got that really interesting qualifying numbers. But Christian Lundgaard, I would say, again, he's going to want to work on the ovals. That'll be the biggest addition to his game because he's still finishing in the top 8 in the championship, which is really, really strong. So the 30 car, right? We're going to move on to Jack Harvey's results there first. Jack Harvey's best finish of the year was 13th. His best qualifying effort, which I forgot about, was 4th, though, I believe at their Indy GP early on in the season. But again, that season, when you look at the race results, it was not going the right way for Jack. And I've been hanging out a lot with Jack over the last couple of weeks, and I've talked to him a lot about it. There was a lot that went wrong, but there was a lot that when you look, it's sad, but when you look at these pure results, and again, in my only one race with that team, I don't have any big numbers to put up. Neither does Vips, but it's just tough because you have 15 car P2, 2 poles, 1 win, 2 poles, and then having your best finishes 13th and 4th in qualifying. That's tough. And so I do hope Jack gets another chance, maybe in another environment, something new. But for myself, my best finish for that team, obviously in the one race that I did, was 16th. Best qualifying was 15th, but obviously P11 after the penalties. And we obviously know what happened in that race. I think we had, if you're a listener to this show, there were many, many things that were going wrong for us, but I truly believe that we had a better opportunity than that, but those are the numbers. And so Yuri Vips as well in the 30 car. Best qualifying effort was 7th. So great qualifying he had at Laguna Seca. But again, 2 races, Best finish, 18th. So those are the raw numbers. That's what it looks like. And then obviously we've got the 44 car, Catherine Legg, qualified 30th, finished 33rd in the race. That was just tough overall.
Yep. Get in there with Stephen Wilson and
Yeah. And I would say still I have this in the little notes section, but Catherine Legg being the highest qualifying Ray Hall car in 30th is just astounding. Graham being very, not making the race at Indy to then having such an impressive run at the end has to be a very, very great, feeling. And then Lundgaard after the year like he had is going to get paid whatever he wants to get paid at Ray Hall or anywhere else in the future. So, good for him. Good for him.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a bunch on this show, like you said, of the rebound after Indy and just they're really, really down and out. And then you saw a lot of, pretty solid results, definitely in qualifying, Lundgaard getting up there, getting a win. So good stuff for RLL. And looking forward to 2024, no doubt. Let's go now to Meyer Shank Racing, another team that we saw Connor Daly hop in the ride for this year. In the 60 car, which was, of course, being held by Simon Pagenaud to start the year. His best finish was 13th. Best qualifying was in the top 10 once at P8. And then we saw that just really, a horrific crash that luckily ended up having him be able to walk away from that. And we know that he's, had the recovery process happening, taking that very, very seriously and being very cautious with the head injury that he suffered through that. But, thank God. You go and watch that replay, man, and I know we talked about it when it happened, but just the fact still that he could walk away from that is pretty remarkable, thank God. But after Mid-Ohio, we saw Connor. You hop in there, best finish P17, best qualifying P15, but a lot of pace in that car, especially like when you said when you were out there at Iowa. Lundqvist hopped in there, best finish P12, best qualifying P11, and then Tom Blomqvist, who you're going to see in this ride full-time going forward next year. His best finish was 24th, so not much to write home about there for Tom, but hoping to turn the chapter there for him and or turn the page for himself there in that ride in 2024. And then, of course, you had Elio. We had kind of that, what was that, mid-season announcement where he was like, or end of the season, or he's like, hey, I'm not,
towards the end.
I'm kind of retired. I'm not, like, somebody calls me, but I'm going to be an advisor. I'm going to have ownership now in Meyer Shank Racing. I'm still going to have the Drive for 5 going on. We talked about Marco earlier, going until he's 45. We're expecting to probably have Elio. I wouldn't put it past him until he's 60 for this man to keep going until he gets that that elusive fifth Indy 500 championship. His best finish, P10, best qualifying, P8. The only top 10 finish for Meyer Shank Racing was Elio there with that P10. But, like you said, we talked about it when you were in that ride, the 60 ride. There's pace in that car. Love Mike Shank. We saw that Linus was able to get P12, P11 qualifying, P12 finished there. But I think overall for Meyer Shank, Connor, another up and down year, kind of a just out of it year in terms of results. But like you said, man, Elio's someone who he could go win 5, the fifth one for in a Meyer Shank car next May.
Yeah.
And then there's plenty of pace in the 60 car that you were able to experience yourself that could be tapped into.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when like the Blomqvist thing is still wild for me when you look at the pure results. His best qualifying was 20th in just a couple races that he had in 24th. But then, Elio, there was a 10th place finish and a P8 qualifying, but boy, Elio really did struggle through the middle and then tried to come back towards the end with a couple decent races. But like when I read the next team, Yukos Racing, their best results, both cars, it's fascinating to see. But I for sure know where when you look at the true numbers on speed, where we were at Mid-Ohio after having to start last, and the speed that we had at Iowa with the strategy not going our way, like there was definitely more in it. So definitely felt like that team gave me a better car than we were able to achieve there. But just such a different experience. But I know that they don't want to have a year like that again. They know that they can come back and be better. So, and I'm sure they will. Tom will get up to speed. Felix is going to come in ready to just get right into the thick of it. So I think they're going to have a really good year next year. So let's get right into Juncos. Now we're getting down to the smaller teams. 77 car, Callum Ilott, obviously. Best finish was 5th twice. And that was pretty much at the beginning of the year and the end of the year. So, Callum had a rough go for a while. But best qualifying in the year was P8. Obviously, that's great. But again, the year before, he qualified on the front row at Laguna Seca on the last race. So I would say that team maybe took a miniature step back. A couple things that they probably did a little bit better. The 78 car, Agustin Canapino, his best finish was 12th 3 times. So he finished 12th 3 times, which is pretty wild. I did not realize that. But his best qualifying was only 18th. So I did not realize that either. But looking at some of the details of the team, is there a lot of turmoil? I don't know. It seemed like there's obviously a lot of hatred towards Callum coming from a lot of the Argentinian fan base. No offense to them, but that's just what's happening. I don't know if it's all fully justified. But Canapino, I would say, had a strong season with not many mistakes. I think that's the most impressive thing about Canapino was just the fact that, not a lot. We did not know much about Agustin Canapino before he got here. And I would say he had a solid year. So I would say he deserves another shot. Both cars did great, not having to fight to get into the 500. And you got to remember, Callum finished 12th at the Indy 500, which I thought I forgot about. I think that was great for a small team like that. So
yep.
Now we move on to the Ed Carpenter Racing Team, Joey.
Yeah.
I will not talk about this one, but I might add some small facts.
Pretty much Connor finished 8th at the Indy 500, and they didn't really do anything else the entire year. So
I can't say that.
Renus finished 6th in a race. He qualified on the front row. I don't remember what race it was, but he
Indy 500.
Oh, shit. That's right. He's always on there.
Yeah. He's always on the front row at the Indy 500.
He's always on the front row of the 500. Weird. But yeah, Ryan Hunter-Reay came in after what was it? Before Road America, and took over the 20 ride. But yeah, it was just kind of hey, they're there. Hey, we're here. We're racing, and that's CCR.
Yeah, no, and just to add on to that, to be fair to everyone, Ryan had pretty much average finishing in the 20s until the last race. But the last race at Laguna Seca really changed the outlook of both this car and the driver of the next team, Stingray Robb, their best finishes of the season. Because obviously Ryan finished 10th at a race where everyone crashed. And then his best qualifying of the year was P16. Ed's best qualifying of the year was actually 4th in that car, but best finish of 13th on the year. So obviously, there's a lot going on there. We will not comment, but we're trying to be fair and say, hey, tough season overall for that group. Renus finishing 14th in the championship. He's way better than that. So there will be more to come, I hope, for Renus. But yeah, there's also, we'll talk more about that in 2024.
There we go. Leave it at 24. Tell us about Dale Coyne and what going on.
Yeah, moving to Dale Coyne Racing. This is a very, very separated group here. Obviously, David Malukas, very different driver than Stingray Robb. The 18 car, their best finish was 3rd. Their best qualifying was 3rd. Couple great results there for David Malukas. But again, I would say he even admitted that they might have taken a little bit of a step back in some of their road and street courses. The 51 car, Stingray Robb, best finish was 12th at the last race of the season. But before that, I think it was like 19th or something like that. Maybe 18th. Definitely not a tremendous one. Best qualifying in the year, 21st for the 51 car. So yeah, that was a tough one. No leader circle, obviously, for the 51 car. But the 18 car, they managed to stay in the leader circle. So yeah, we'll move on to another 2-car team with AJ Foyt Racing.
Yep, pretty much Indy was their only thing to write home about this year. And AJ Foyt, 14, Santino Ferrucci obviously finished third there, had a great qualifying there. Pete 4 and the red, white, and blue 14. Benjamin Peterson also was in the Fast 12 at the Indy 500. Was on pace for to have his best finish of the year there as well, but then obviously got crashed and then finished P15. There not much really, besides Benjamin Peterson being in the Fast 12 at Indy. I'd say the thing that he was remembered for most in 2023 was just pissing off all of the other drivers and having that storyline happen. Santino, not a lot there at all besides the 2 weeks at Indy on that oval. But I mean, that is something to be said and something to look forward to for Foyt in 2024, especially with their partnership with Penske. The speed that they're able to tap into on those ovals, Connor, it's something that's for the big one, right? And then for oval racing, whether it be at Texas, which I just got a report that apparently who knows if that's even going to happen in 2024. That's a different conversation. But it could be enticing.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I looked at Benjamin Peterson. I know there was some grief given to him by you, Joey, by me as well. But Benjamin, to be fair, him finishing 15th, not great, but like Benjamin had a low-key decent race at Texas. Like Texas is a difficult race. And when you look at that result there at Texas, you're like, man, that's actually not bad compared to who was still running. And then qualifying in the top 12 at Indy. I mean, that's massive. So I was looking at some of that, and, there was obviously a lot of mechanical problems for him as well. And, Benjamin got destroyed by Graham Rahal in the Indy 500 and absolutely written off by Ed Carpenter in St. Louis. And, had that not happened, Indy's probably his best race of the year. He had stayed in the fight, didn't make any mistakes. But yeah, I would say there's still a lot of differences between where they were at Indy compared to everywhere else. But they're a Penske satellite team. I mean, they're a Penske affiliated organization. I think that team is going to have a massive uptick in performance next year for sure.
Yeah, hard not to when you got the old Penske tie-in there, right?
I know I'm calling them. I know I'm certainly calling them.
All right, Driver Reinbold Racing. We had 2 Indy-only cars there. Connor, tell us more.
Yes, yeah. Obviously this will be quick, but DRR, when you look at it, put competitive cars out there. Hunter Ray, finishing 11th in that car as a one-off is great. 18th. Stefan had speed all month of May, but obviously Graham, Stefan qualified at 25th. Graham finished at 22nd, but he wrecked. So we just got to give him credit. I would say just give him credit again for, never, they're definitely not the ones that have to fight to get into the race. And I now having driven for them in the rallycross stuff, Nitro Cross, great people there. And I, if I ever get to a point where, we're looking for something or need to, I would love to drive for them at the Indy 500 at some point. Because they're a great group of people. So really interesting. And obviously you could take our boy RC Anderson too. Last but not least, the Able Motorsports team, Joey.
No, not at all. I mean, when you come into this one-off like this with a team like that, and you are able to avoid last chance qualifying, you qualify P29 for the big show for the Indy 500. Yeah, I mean that's you got to say that is just a huge accomplishment in itself, right?
Well, I thought that was fantastic for them to make the race and not have to worry about that.
Yeah,
I mean, dude, that was huge. They outdid a team that has
with a team like that, you're kind of like, okay, that's going to be one of the ones there at the end for the last shot. I mean, it's just kind of like a given, right? And then for that not to be, hell yeah.
Oh yeah, great stuff there. And honestly, super happy for RC for what he had to deal with, missing the race not too long ago. So great stuff for them. And that's kind of first of all, did we forget anyone? I'm 99% sure we didn't forget. I'm pretty sure I went through it. I got them all.
You were locked in for like 6 hours.
I was locked in on this document.
Adderalls, just freaking.
Yeah, not allowed to do Adderall. Never done that. But yeah, it's I just focused in on it. But yeah, that's kind of, let us know what you think as well. If you learned anything from this, if you have anything else you want to add, we've obviously got, we just looked at factual numbers, right? There's definitely average finishes of the season. There's average qualifyings of the season. There's top 10s that matter. There's top 12s, because if you're in the top 12, you get the money. That's the only prize money positions that are available. We obviously there was a lot of research done into the top 22 in car points. So there was a lot of stuff in there, but that's just kind of the raw details, a few things that I think that we, were able to look at and cover. So, yeah, let us know what you think of it.
I appreciate you doing that, man. Good stuff. Yeah, full season review there for 2023. Cannot wait for 2024, though. All right. We also had questions, some fan audience questions, some interaction that we're going to get into here. So let's hop into it, man. We've got plenty. We got 15 pages of questions that were submitted.
15 pages of screenshots.
Yeah, of screenshots of questions. So appreciate everybody there with the engagement. All right, let's start off with, I think, what's on a lot of people's minds. Connor, from Trucker Lex 93. If you talk about your options for next year, and what are they? IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, or other?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And obviously this kind of helps eliminate about 20 or 30 other questions about, what the future looks like. There were a couple of questions from folks about, would I be interested in going to NASCAR? Like, would you go to the NASCAR Cup Series? And it's like, well, I'm not going to get chosen for that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have the ability to choose my own destiny right now. We are in great conversations right now with Todd Bitnile, and a lot of people have asked, what that relationship is like. That relationship never went away. Bitnile.com was on my Nitrocross car. They were on my NASCAR truck suit. Have always been, remained working with them. So we're trying to figure out where we all end up, where we can work together next year. They obviously have some decisions to make as well for them. IMSA is something that seems to me very hard to break into, unless you have a really good factory tie with some sort of manufacturer. The NASCAR stuff, again, the only way I'm going to get into NASCAR is if someone wants to put me in, or if there's a big sponsor behind me. That's the only way I'm going to get in. Like, I can't just go cup racing with $30 million. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to just get in a NASCAR, sanctioned event just to do it. I did that with the number 50 car. And that's honestly, that was great to experience, but like, I don't get into start and park in NASCAR or be the C tier team. I experienced a little bit of that this year. So, if I went NASCAR truck racing, that's where I would want to go. I do believe there are for sure going to be some NASCAR truck races on my schedule next year. Hopefully with the Nice Motorsports team, because they're who I've got a great relationship with. But right now the goal is still IndyCar. Whether or not it's full time, I don't know. But there is a good chance at being in IndyCar at some level. And then I would say the schedule could yet again be diverse next year. So hopefully that answers. Like, would I, if there was a couple, if I was offered a NASCAR seat in any of the top 3 levels, would I take it? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. But if I have some support to go NASCAR race or IndyCar racing, I would obviously look towards that first, because there's a lot more that I want to do there.
This is just a me question. What do you have a timeline for that? Like can we expect it, or are we still just?
Oh, I have no idea.
No idea.
Yeah, I would say obviously the sooner rather than later. Like,
yeah,
you always want to have your deal done before Thanksgiving. I feel like that would be ideal.
Okay.
But I had some great calls today. Literally today, I was on the phone for 4 hours with different team owners, partners, different sponsors, even some folks that have supported us in the past. So a lot of good stuff. But won't know until we know, and who knows who's real or not as well.
Right. All right. From Michael _Zedrick the fourth. What does the off season look like for you?
And then also, we'll go ahead and get into the second part of this question too. We should get into that too, right?
Yeah. What do you think of 5 cars at Ganassi was another one that he sent in? Yeah.
Yeah, because that kind of takes care of. We had a couple other questions later on, and again, we're trying to make this so it's not a super long situation. But off season for us, like for me right now, last year I had the luxury of I wasn't in a contract year. But this time of year is really stressful. I have not slept at all week. just because you don't know what's going to happen. It's very difficult because you don't have the ability to control your own destiny. I don't know how much support I have behind me yet. I have an idea of what I have behind me. But there's also a lot of other players right now on the field, coming over to IndyCar. There are way more drivers than you think, talking to IndyCar team owners, and some names that might surprise you as well, which I will not list. But there are definitely some heavy hitters, some people that have some funding that have a number that you hope to have more than their number. It's basically who's got the biggest check, but also who is the best fit. So it's really just working on the business side. For me, off season as well, I would like to go on a vacation at some point. But for me, there's a lot of training to stay fit for whatever happens next year, whatever we can get into. And then it's all business all the time. And Speed Street, the Speed Street podcast. We're going to do that too.
Nice. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to go?
I have no idea. I want to do something for my birthday in December. I might go to Hawaii. I know there's lots of fires and stuff down there, but I would love to go to Hawaii, somewhere where somewhere over there. Who knows? We'll see.
Okay, cool. All right, and then what do you think of 5 cars of Ganassi?
Yeah. So I wanted to get into this a little bit more. Obviously, we talked about it at the beginning of the show, and Joe, you brought it up, but Kyffin Simpson at Ganassi, 4 cars is a lot. 5 cars is more than anyone else, right? Like, so that is when you talk about the best team in IndyCar, right? They ran 4 cars at the highest level, and like that was really impressive. But at what stage is there too much? I don't know, because I think there was another question in here, and again, I don't mean to skip your name if you asked this question, but there was a question about what separates Ganassi from other teams, and I think when you see who works there, when you see the mechanics or the engineers, the people that you hear from, and I talk to Michael Cannon a lot, who is a very, very good friend of mine. He obviously works at the Foyt team now. What you hear about Ganassi is every single person there wants to win now, and they will do whatever it takes to win. Whatever it takes, it doesn't matter. Winning is the only attitude, and every single person has that attitude. And so that's very, very important. They have very, very smart people there. But to go to 5 cars is tough. Like, that's adding another maybe 20, 30 people. And it's hard to find great people these days because there's so many full-time cars, right? Everyone's fighting for people. So I think it'll be very interesting to see if it affects the general performance at all. They've got 3 really young people now on that team, 3 really young drivers. And then you've got Alex Palou and Scott Dixon, who have won, almost 10 championships between them. So that's a wild dynamic. But I don't think they lose anything. But it does offer us folks that follow along maybe some interesting things to pay attention to, I would say.
Yeah, no, definitely. The resources, I mean, even for the big teams, once you get those numbers, it's you got to play just a straight up numbers game, So
exactly.
And the fact that he's 18, 19 years old will also be interesting to watch go down. All right, let's go to Jin C Man 94. Who is your racing idol more than your dad?
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting question. I would say there's a couple people. Realistically, I looked up to Dan Weldon a lot growing up. Dan Weldon was a great person, a great friend of mine, great influence as well, helped me out a lot. There were also people like Sam Hornish Jr., who was very helpful for me when I was younger. But people I looked up to, like Michael Schumacher was always the idol for young folks growing up. And yeah, I would say those are some folks that I looked up to for sure.
Matty Light _20 wants to know, any chance you and Joey get a studio together for the pod? Would love that. Yeah, I mean, it's just tough. Like, we were with Dirty Mo and we record with Ben every week. And so we have this setup now where we do this remotely and
yeah,
no, it's just, and we have studio spaces, obviously, that we used to do it in, but it's just with what we do with Dirty Mo and with our production and everything like that, it kind of doesn't make sense really,
Yeah. I mean, eventually that would be awesome. But we also have to respect where everyone is too. You know what I mean? Like it's, we love having been involved with Dirty Mo being in Charlotte. Like that's great that those DVC guys can get in there and everyone, that whole organization is based in one city, right? So we're a little bit of the outliers, but hopefully people enjoy this. And obviously a studio will be cool. We talked a little bit about a future guest, maybe all of us flying to a studio to do an episode. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But yeah, who knows? Maybe sometime in the future.
From Star Wars Pilots, I promise this is on my burner account as well.
Is this your burner account?
What driver had the most impressive drive any 1 week? For example, overcoming injury, poor car, etc.
Interesting question. I don't know if there's one answer for this. I would say, a lot of people would probably say Linus Lundqvist in Nashville, but he did end up in the wall in that race too. So there was a lot of impressiveness about that. Him finishing 12th as well, great solid finish. I would say the most baffling thing, if you say any 1 week, it was qualifying week for AJ Foyt Racing. I think that was the most baffling thing about the whole season was qualifying for that team. That was pretty wild to watch, pretty wild to see. So yeah, those were some really interesting results, I would say, this year. Overcoming a poor car injury, that might not be included in that. But the funny thing is, actually, this is maybe a lot of people didn't know this, but like Alex Palou actually had a bit of a swollen hand after one of the races towards the end of the year. I believe he was in some accident towards the end of the year or had some side-to-side contact with someone. Sometimes the wheels flip out of our hands, the steering wheel flip out of our hands. And I know Alex was in pain for a little bit in one of those races. But he just overcomes everything and is successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those guys just wouldn't slow down at Indy, man. That's
exactly.
Just kept coming. What's up?
No, go ahead. I was like, I wanted to see if Ben wanted to go to page 3 and we just start getting him. Ben can read some of these off too if you want. Ben, you want to go to?
I got one here. I want to get.
Okay, yeah.
Go for it. From Drew _Asbel 26. How many full-time cars do you see in IndyCar next year? 27. Engines play into this, right?
What page is that on?
Number 3.
Okay, number 3. Got it. When you think about how many full-time entries, you have to think about the tracks that we go to as well. Like if you have 28 full-time cars, I'm not actually sure 28 fit in the Toronto pit lane. So there are some places that are actually pretty tight on spacing. So that really is the big question when it comes to how many cars. And now again, I think if there are extra cars, they're going to do it, right? But yeah, curious to see. I don't think we get to 28. I think we stay at 27, but who knows?
Ben, you want to take over?
Yeah, so this is also on the 3rd page. I'm assuming they're talking about the events you've ran this year. Is this from Sausage, maybe? Like sausage, but with
maybe.
I don't know. Of all the non-Indy events you participated in, which one did you enjoy the most?
Oh man, that's tough. I would say probably the Daytona 500. I know there was a lot of craziness, but just getting to experience that was pretty cool. I would obviously have loved to have been in a slightly better position for that. But yeah, that was super unique to be a part of, and I have no idea if I'll get a chance to ever do it again. So pretty cool to have done that.
Yeah, next one, Benny Factor Vivo. They asked about you driving the GT40 this past week, and was it totally badass or was it rad as hell?
Yeah, so there was this kind of eliminates a couple other questions from the list too. The GT40, the 1966, I labeled it 1965 at one point, but the 1965 Le Mans winner was the Ferrari, which Jack Harvey drove. But it was really cool. We obviously didn't get to go too fast because we couldn't actually wear helmets in the cars because they were too small. We wouldn't have been able to fit in there, which is kind of crazy. But pretty wild. Like as soon as you turn the thing on, starts up real well. As soon as you shut the door, you're crying because it's got race fuel and fumes, and you're like, I can't see. We got to go. But pretty simple to drive. Gearbox was great for an older vehicle. sounded incredible, just raw power. But from what I could, like, this, the steering wheel is like kind of almost like it's very old. So you just got to be careful. But I wish we could have gone a little bit faster. But I also want to take care of one of America's finest automobiles. So pretty cool to drive. The sound was the best, and just getting, I mean, that car is worth, probably over $20 million. So pretty incredible to have that in my hands.
This could just be a quick little rundown for him, but from Rocket QH, they asked if you can explain the car changes we'll see starting in 2024.
Yeah, interesting. I actually just heard about some of the testing with the hybrid unit. They're obviously is gonna be a hybrid element to next year, and I don't actually know a ton about it yet. I know it adds weight to the car. I know that there is a hybrid element where we're gonna try to use it for boost, potential help to the overtake system. But it will be different. It will change the balance of the cars. There were a couple other questions about this too, where I think there might be some different teams taking advantage of it in different ways. Right now, you've got Penske and Ganassi doing all the testing, right? So there's, those guys already have a big advantage. They try to keep it fair and not to let them work on stuff, but those guys have the familiarity with it. But that's how racing works. The biggest and best teams always get to test the new stuff first. So I'll be curious to see what it's like when other folks get their hands on it as well. And we can kind of skip the rest on that page. What do you think? Maybe we go to page 5. There's a lot on page 5.
Number 5. I kind of like this one. This is from 2-Day Dream Believers. Racer talked about TV after 2024, drivers/paddock. Happy with NBC. Any rumors about what's to come with that?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, TV deals are very important right now. I mean, Joey, I don't know what you think about where IndyCar could go or what might be next if streaming is a route, but like, I know our relationship with NBC is great. I love working with the folks at NBC. I would say it was a little sad to see NBC use a Formula One car on a graphic during Sunday Night Football. That was a little bit concerning for me, considering that NBC owns the rights to the IndyCar stuff. But obviously Miami had a Formula One race. I understood it, but I was like, oh man, if you're going to use racing, maybe let's use IndyCars. I don't know. What do you think, Joey?
You would think. No, I've enjoyed watching the product of IndyCar, the broadcast team. And I mean, to be honest, the fact that they're willing to get IndyCar on a giant national audience on cable for what, 13 out of 17 races or 14 out of 17 races?
That's a lot of cable. Yeah, it's a lot of cable.
Like, yeah, I think that has to be a tip of the cap and a thank you there at some point to be like, hey, all these ratings that we've seen, and this growth that we've seen that we're all very excited about and proud about and can't wait to continue. How much of that comes from the fact that, hey, now almost every Sunday, when IndyCar's racing, we're tapping into millions and millions of people right there on just their basic, hey, turn on the tube and it's there.
Yeah.
So it will be interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think that there's, you got to try to capitalize on the momentum of the way that it's going. And like you said, like you see this all the time with, the National Football League and college football and whatnot. And now NASCAR obviously is diving into it more and more. So it's big. It's a big, big business, man. And it's going to be, I think it might be the most important decision and a business deal that happens for IndyCar in the next, I don't know how many years.
I agree.
You get set up with the right thing. You fall into something like how F1 did with ESPN and the no commercial broadcast there. Then the Netflix, all of a sudden, boom, there you go. So it's huge. It's huge.
I love that. Yeah, you're definitely right. All right, there's a couple other questions on that page as well. I think that are decent. What do you think, Ben?
Let me see here. Because I keep it every time that I. All right, number 5. This is a kind of a downer one, but interesting, I suppose, nonetheless. Well, actually, no, let's go to this one. Deborah Doppenberg, is there any racetrack in another country that you have ever wanted to race on? That maybe you haven't yet, because we know that you have raced.
Yeah, I mean, I've been lucky to get around the world in racing, but there's one track for sure And I think IndyCar, I wish IndyCar still raced in Japan. I would love to race at Suzuka, the road course there, but also Motegi. I thought like the IndyCar race at Motegi back in the day. Obviously, Danica won there. And it was, but that was a great oval race for IndyCar racing. And I think racing in Japan would just be awesome. So that for me would be a big one. I think on that page, I think we should save some of these for another episode too, because we've definitely talked a lot about the sport in this episode. But there was one here, B17_fan. Kirkwood's flying wheel at the 500 could have ended racing as we know it. I disagree. Have they fixed that issue? I think IndyCar always works to fix that stuff, but this is still motorsport. So stuff flies and stuff is going to explode and stuff is going to wreck. But, they did reinforce the tethers. I know that. But you never know. Like when we're doing 230 miles an hour and you try to basically slam two vehicles together, you never know what's going to happen. So obviously we hope that, they can fix that. We'll be all right. But yeah, I don't think it would have ended racing as we know it.
Yeah, I mean,
we saw a lot of stuff back in. We used to see cars flying into the stands and mow down 100 people. So
right.
I'm glad we're not in that era anymore. But like, man, when you buy those tickets to that race, you understand that there's risk associated with that as well.
Yeah, the racing history. I mean, for God's sake, we do another Ricky Treadway Random Indy 500 driver of the weekend. Yeah. Good Lord.
Yeah.
All right. Let's like you said, we're about halfway through on these, Connor. We can save a lot of them for the other ones.
Let's go with a couple. Let's go with one of these that was asked. Space Ace 3. A couple other people asked this too. If we're going to be at the Dirty Mo Experience in Las Vegas, no, not that I know of. I don't know if you, Ben, are going or Joey. Are you going, Joey?
No, I
don't know.
Wish. I would love the invite.
I don't think I can go because that's Alex Rossi's getting married that weekend. So that is where I will be. But yeah, on this page 6, we have a few other pages to get to. And again, I do want to get to a lot of these, but we have a lot of off-season episodes to get to as well.
This will be more of a regular thing.
Yeah, exactly. I think there was a couple interesting ones. Couldn't ask for more. Asked, would you rather a top tier ride in a different category or a low tier ride in IndyCar? That is actually a tough question. I think a top tier ride in NASCAR or NASCAR would really be the only other category. Maybe IMSA, but it would definitely be. It's something that I cannot give you an answer for right now. I would say that. I just don't know.
Yeah. Hasn't been. Yep.
Yeah. And then obviously there's one other question. Sorry, Joey, just to get to Seaton 1268. Would you drive a dirt sprint car? No. I've told people that all the time. No. I'm not driving a sprint car. You will never see me in one. It's not because I don't like it. It's just because I know where to stay in my lane. I don't want to. That's just not where I'm qualified. I've retired from midget racing as well. No more midget dirt racing for me. You'll just never see me in one of those. So sorry.
And then I'm going to end here with Scotty Leisure. What kind of cars do Joey and Ben drive?
There you go.
Ben, what are you whipping there?
Oh, man, I can't wait to hear your guys' response to this. So I drive a 2005 silver Toyota Prius.
All right. Big environment guy, huh? Been thinking about the world and trees and stuff and air.
Right. My first car from high school. It's still with me. It's nicknamed the Silver Bullet, so I whip around the Silver Bullet.
Hey,
whip around the Silver Bullet, so I'm assuming there's no payment there, so you're just riding.
There is no payment. There is no payment. It cost me about maybe $25 to $30 to fill up. So, I mean, that alone is make it, I think, a lot higher tier than people would probably give it.
That's a smart man right there.
Good smart man.
Good for you, kid.
Thank you.
I am a father of one, soon to be two, and a married man and 30. So I obviously don't drive anything cool. I drive a Honda HR-V. That is a very mom-looking car, and it's very cozy with enough room in the back to fit the babies and potentially the dog if need be. And it's fairly decent on mileage as well. So little upkeep, enough for the family, and that's my life now.
All-wheel drive too. Good in the snow.
Yeah, not bad. Not bad.
There you go. Perfect.
All right. That's about halfway through the questions, but we got plenty of time to get to more and more of those. This has been a full show, full recap. full prediction for recap, everything. We appreciate you being along with us, but of course, we can't go anywhere without finishing with the Ricky Treadway Random Indy 500 Driver of the Week.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to get right into it here for our final segment of the day, the Ricky Treadway Random Indy 500 Driver of the Week. I went with the 1960 Indy 500, which I don't believe that I have used very often. Excuse me while I burp.
I'll get through burps.
Goodness gracious. Mid-show, really classy activities there. Jim Rathman won this race. Jim Rathman, the winner. 1960. So we went to the 11th place finisher. The 11th place finisher in the 1960 Indy 500, Red Amick. Red Amick, literally spelled color red. I have not heard this name before. Richard Red Amick, born 1929, died in 1995. Born in Kansas City, Missouri, died in Florida, drove in the USAC Championship Car Series, racing in the 1958 to 1960 seasons with 5 starts, just 2 Indy 500s, 1959 and 1960. Best finish was 1960 with 11th. So only just 2 Indy 500s. So pretty short Indy 500 career, and honestly, short Wikipedia page as well. So Red Amick is our person that we're learning about this week. Cool looking car though. When I Googled him, some really cool pictures of his vehicle as well from the 500.
Yeah, you don't hear the name Red thrown around too often now. It feels like it's a very old-timey, type of name. Red Amick, shout out to you. Rest in peace. Appreciate all your efforts. There it is. This week's Ricky Treadway, Random Indy 500 Driver of the Week. All right, stacked show for you here. This is what we do in the off-season here at Speed Street. So glad to have you along with us. We appreciate it. Just be sure to continue to, rate, review, follow, subscribe, all of those things for Speed Street, continuing to grow into the neighborhood. And Connor is putting the full YouTube video shows on his YouTube channel. Connor, tell them where to find that.
Yes, Connor Daly 22 on the YouTubes. Feel free to jump in. The Austin Eckler, all the last 3 episodes are up there. People seem to be enjoying those, so keep watching it, keep liking it, keep doing all that stuff, and we're gonna, keep putting them out anywhere you can listen to and watch podcasts.
There it is. Appreciate that. For Connor Daly, for Ben Walden, for Dirty Mo Media, I'm Joey Mulinaro. This has been another edition of Speed Street, and we will talk to you again next week.
Hey everyone, Connor Daly here. Please leave a like on this video if you did enjoy it, and also subscribe to the channel as well. That would be very helpful. Be a friend, tell a friend. Thank you so much for the support, and we'll see you on the next episode of Speed Street.